Alright, this is it. The Maricopa County Forensic Election Audit. I felt like I needed to say something because I bit my tongue when Carrie Lake said someone purged the machines before the audit was to begin. Hundreds of thousands of fraudulent votes that were proven. They were waiting for the forensic analysis of the paper, and all this was actually talked about in the audit itself. And then, oh gosh, 4 or 5 days ago, Trump went on Victory News and talked about the ballots will show he won. They will show fraud, and the media is not accurately portraying the coverage. We're going to go through the whole report ourselves. I think any questionable results we should take into consideration, and I will tabulate them, and we'll see what the results show. So, first thing is, the audit included a full hand recount of the 2.1 million ballots from the 2020 general election. This is just part 3 of the Cyber Ninja report. In volume 2, they said it was designated to be a comprehensive review of the results from the Maricopa County 2020 general election to confirm the effectiveness of existing litigation in governing elections and to provide additional insight on possible areas of information-based legislative reform that could ensure an even greater level of integrity and accuracy in how elections are conducted. Section 2 also says the audit is the most comprehensive election audit it has conducted. It involved reviewing everything from the voter history for the election to retallying all 2.1 million ballots, like I said, by hand, to performing forensic photography and review of the ballot paper. That's what I just talked about with Carrie Lake. To conducting cyber forensic images and analysis of the provided voting equipment. Also in section 2.6.3, it says that the paper examination process captured the following images on every ballot: front and back side DLSR, the presidential oval mark, the evaluation of the fiber of the paper, the print alignment, color versus black and white, and yeah. So that's from my report. I have a 3-page write-up here. It shows that Biden won. The first one we'll get to is here's a breakdown. Questionable ballots, which they said did not affect anything, and we'll just jump to that real quick. All right, so questionable ballots. It says the questionable ballots have been reviewed to determine if they favor one presidential candidate over another presidential candidate. No discernible pattern can be determined. This highly suggests that these are not counterfeit. So the questionable ballots are not counterfeit. They did not find counterfeit ballots. We can start here with the critical findings, which was 23,344 questionable ballots. Ballots, they say, impacted. And this is mail-in ballots were cast under voter registration IDs for people that may not have received their ballots by mail because they had moved and no one with the same last name remained at the address. Through extensive data analysis, we have discovered approximately 23,344 votes that may have met this condition. But it also says down here, in certain circumstances, however, it may be possible for them to receive a ballot. For example, if they know the present occupant, I think that's a typo, it's supposed to be previous occupant, or if the ballot is improperly forwarded. It also says down here, the final vote value, blah, 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 was cross-checked. Yeah, by the data forwarded by Alyssa. They did a good job cross-checking, their information. Here's the breakdown of the numbers. It was 9,220 Democratic ballots and 7,703 Republican ballots. So this is something you'll see. It's not just Democratic ballots. It's Republican ballots. And you'll see also later in here, it flips and Republicans start taking over for the percentage of ballots affected that are impacted, I should say. Down here it says, well, high-quality commercial databases sources were utilized to assemble these findings. Some error is expected. And also over here it says, a full list of voter IDs affected can be found in the blah, blah, blah. There are potential ways that a voter could receive their ballot, which in some cases would not violate the law. Additional investigation by the Attorney General is needed. So out of these 23,344, there are ways that these people could still get their ballots. Looking more into this and not just going off the report, there are circumstances where college students, those who own vacation homes, or military members can move temporarily and still legally vote in the address where they are registered. Also, Amy Chan, who's a Republican, an elections commissioner, said that it had 20,933 one-time temporary address requests for the November election. That's something that actually me and my wife did. It was about 15 days out from the election, and we had to register a new address. We moved. More ballots returned by voters than received. 9,041 ballots affected. In most of these instances, the individual was sent one ballot, but it had 2 ballots received on different dates. Further investigation would be needed to determine the cause, but this could be explained in any of the possible ways. Now, here's the possible ways. More than one ballot could have been sent out, but an entry was missed with the EV32 file, clerical. The same ballot could have been processed more than once on different days, resulting in 2 EV33s for one ballot, clerical. Checking into early voting by person may not have registered for the mail-in ballot and was already received in both. The early vote in person and the mail-in may have generated an EV33, also clerical. A counterfeit ballot was sent via mail, and both the legitimate ballot sent and the counterfeit ballot generated EV33 entries. I started this because we already talked about counterfeit ballots, and they found none. A hand recount of all 2,000,000.1 ballots, they found no counterfeits. So I don't even know why they would even put that in their final report. Doesn't make sense. We've been informed shortly before the release of this report that some of the discrepancies outlined could be due to the protected voters list. That's another thing. Before this report dropped and they were to have their Senate hearing, I think his name is Doug Logan. Doug Logan and the 2 other people, they kind of were caught off guard, and I think the Senate was in a pissing match with Cyber Ninjas because Cyber Ninjas wanted communications from Cyber Ninjas. Cyber Ninjas wanted more information from the state, and they went back and forth. Cyber Ninjas wouldn't give them the information. The state wouldn't give Cyber Ninjas their information, so it was a big pissing contest, and I think they tried to make them look a little foolish in the Senate hearing. You'll see another part of information that they withheld. EV30 indicator ballots received do not necessarily mean the ballot was counted. So even though it was received, it does not mean it was counted. Democrats lead this one again, 3,110 to 2,748, but pretty damn close. Voters that potentially voted in multiple counties, 5,295. Although there's no identity of what party voted for which, and this is their breakdown of the information that you're supposed to somehow get anything out of. It looks like some sort of link, but you can't, in a PDF you really can't do that, so. Well, the PDF I downloaded. Official results do not match who voted, 3,432. Again, no party breakdown, and during the hearing, Doug Logan was told the day of the hearing, like I was talking about, that the number represented judges, law enforcement, battered women, etc., whose information is kept private and not made public. Like I said, it was a big pissing contest, and if you want to watch the 3-hour hearing, it's on C-SPAN. Just fast forward to the middle. That's when Doug Logan starts talking, and you'll hear him actually say that he was informed the day of his hearing, so it was kind of intense. More duplicates than original ballots. This is something that a lot of people complained about. A lot of duplicates. 2,092. These extra duplicates favored Republican candidates over Democrat candidates. They were expecting, so here it is, Trump, Biden. They were expecting 48% to go to Biden, 48 to go to Trump, 58 to go to Biden. But instead, it was 58 that went to Trump and 33 to Biden. So it was a huge discrepancy there. In-person voters who moved out of Maricopa County, 2,382. A small percentage of errors expected within these results. Again, they say that. Republican Party led this one, 1,128 to 596. Voters who moved out of the state during the 29-day period. A person who was out of Arizona between blah, blah, blah and blah, blah, blah was no longer legally considered a resident, however, eligible to vote. Present day ballot. So that's the law that they're referring to. It was cross-checked once again, so they did their due diligence. Republican Party, once again, 41% to 31%, 10% difference there. 859 to 655. Trying to blaze through this, guys. Make it faster. Votes counted in excess of voters who voted. More votes than voters, just to put it simply. The expected delta should be more voters who voted than votes cast. Yeah, more votes than voters? Or voters than votes? Yeah, more voters than votes, yeah. Be informed shortly before the release of this report that some of the discrepancies outlined could be due to the projected voters list. Once again, there's a pissing contest. That's the part of the information that he didn't know about. What this does, favor the Republican Party, 655 to Democratic Party, 465. Voters not on the official precinct list, 618 affected. We'll just get to the fun part. Republican Party, 229. Democratic Party, 214. Not much to discuss there. Duplicate ballots, incorrect and missing serial numbers, around 500, but once again, they don't give you a party breakdown, so... ballots returned, not in the final vote file. Oh yeah, this one I thought could be easily explained. Vote early ballots is not used anytime in the 2020 general election. The most likely explanation that these ballots represented rejected ballots. I think they actually represent the vote early ballot designation. So I think that's actually explainable, but I can't be sure. Republicans 33 to 32, pretty close there, 142 to 137. Here's one I really want to talk about. Mail-in ballots received without record of being sent. Now, this is the information that was circulating online. At the early hearing, it was stated that there was 74,243 entries in the EV33 early voting return files without a corresponding entry in the EV32 early voting sent files. That was brought up in the context of justification for performing canvassing to further validate the reasoning for this discrepancy. While this discrepancy is accurate, it was intentionally misleading. All but 397 of those entries were early voting in-person votes, which also generated an EV33 entry in addition to the mail-in ballots. Not 74,000. 397. That's in the report. I am so sick of people referring to 74,000 votes or ballots, whatever they say. This one did favor the Democrats to the tune of 132 to 125. This one is voters with incomplete names, so you didn't put your last name in or you just used a letter. Whatever. Throw them out. If you can't follow simple rules like that, just throw them out. Whatever. What's this? Oh, so this one is deceased voters, which was only 282. 282, not thousands. Deceased voters, they found 282. It's recommended that the Attorney General get involved for these findings. You know what? I totally agree. This is valid. There shouldn't even be any. Why is there 282 deceased voters? It's a small majority, but dead voters favor the Republican Party and Trump, 140 to 84. Audit so whatever that thing is, not match the count. I don't know a lot about this, but this is some military thing with 226. They don't say the party, but right here it does say, I think this is explanatory too. The law allows military voters who are out of their home currently to vote electronically. However, non-military voters, civilians who are not out of the country and not eligible to vote electronically, according to Maricopa County's map website, more than 140 civilians who are not eligible due to being in the United States were permitted to vote in the 2020 election. So you have an explanation for 140 of them right there. They were just inside the country. They were just ineligible. They were probably military who thought they were still eligible to vote using the system. So I think that's actually 84 instead of 226. But also, they don't give a party breakdown, so it doesn't even matter. You really can't say which party it favored either, or whatever. Late registration votes, 198. Favored Republicans 67 to 63. Once again, a couple percentage points close there. Date of registration changed to earlier date. Republicans 63 to 61. Favored Republicans. Duplicate voter IDs. Favored Democrats 46 to 30. 16-point swing there, or 16% swing. They actually go into a little more detail on this one. This one is, what is this one? Oh, multiple linked with the AS Africa, whatever. Democrat Party 42 to 33. People are probably going to complain if I don't talk about this. I don't really know what this is, and it was kind of confusing. So, if you want to read it, which people don't want to, they'll just take what everyone else says, their word for it, who hasn't even read it. So, whatever. I don't think you're going to read it either, but it's pretty confusing. Democrats came out on top on that one, though. Here's the data files. You can't click on any of this stuff when you download a PDF. You can't. None of this stuff is even applicable. I pulled up a few different versions of the report. You can't click on this. Double scan and counted ballots. Remember Melissa Carone rescanning. Well, she was in a different state, but they only had 50, not thousands, not hundreds, 50. There's no party breakdown, so it was 50. God, that thing again, electronic ballots double counted was 6. Duplicate ballots resulted, no party also, 6, no party for, what is this one? Duplicate ballots were used, serial number 6. And that's it. That's it. These are not applicable. These didn't affect the ballots. They didn't affect any. Here's one I do want to cover, though. High bleed through. This is Sharpie Gate. The biggest concern with bleed through, if it occurs in places that might somehow impact the reader of the ballot on the other side of the paper, ballots are generally designed to minimize this potential by offsetting the races on each side of the paper so that if bleed through does happen, it's a safe distance away from the ballot ovals. On the other side of the paper, Maricopa County ballots were designed in this manner. The effect of this offsetting could be hampered, however, if the ballot printer is not calibrated. Out of calibration printers is another thing they covered. When this occurs, the miscalibration causes the front of the ballot not to be aligned with the intended back of the ballot. If this miscalibration is off enough, it could be allowed to bleed through to fill out the oval on the other side of the paper and cast a vote for something they didn't want, or simply confuse the tabulator enough to send the ballot to adjudication. Out of several thousands of ballot images that were manually reviewed, we could not find any images where bleed through was close enough to the ballot oval to cause mistabulation, nor did we see any immediate correction with adjudication. Sharpie Gate was not a thing. Didn't affect anything. And proper paper out. I work in printing, so I know that when you design something and it goes through design, there is some skew with the printers, but that's because they go through this long track and they shift, and there's a little bit of shift. It was printed on 20 and 30 pound. They said 80 or higher, 80 pound or higher. Business cards are on 100 pound. That's some thick paper. To go through these machines, can they handle that? I mean, we have a perforating machine, and sometimes 100 pound gets cracked in there, depending on what grain it is, what direction the grain is, etc., etc. Let's get to the final one here. Questionable ballots. The questionable ballots have been reviewed. They do go over the machines, and that's something that I didn't go through because it just seemed like a huge rehash. They took one category and they kept breaking it down and breaking it down and breaking it down. So let's just get to the beginning here, because that's the one that I think everyone needs to see. We need to address this right away, and I'm at 20 minutes. Database purge. The election management system database, which holds all the details associated with the 2020 general election, was purged, and all the election results were cleared by a result tally reporting administration on February 2nd. February 2nd. This was before the Pro VMV audit was scheduled. Now, that is something I do want to address. I addressed that in my report. Something you got to go outside the report to find. The Pro VMV audit was not Cyber Ninja's audit. It was not. Cyber Ninja's was brought in March 31st, nearly 2 months after the machines were cleared. He's talking about the audits that I think were formally conducted on February 23rd. They were forensic audits of the machines conducted by 2 separate auditors who found nothing wrong with the machines. Now, this was explained by, who was it? Megan Gilbertson. She said, "We have data archival procedures for our election and have archived the 2020 November general election database on backup drives. From what I read and could find out, it's basically on a thumb drive." And they kind of laughed it off, being like, you know what? They didn't even ask for that information. And they kind of laughed at Cyber Ninjas about it. Like I said, it's a pissing contest. It's also important to point out that we provided the Senate with the Windows event logs, network logs, and other data from the tabulation equipment on January 20th. We cannot keep everything on the EMS server because, like all equipment, it has storage limits. We also had a statutory mandated election to prepare for in March. That's right, they did have a election coming up that, like March 6th or March 9th, in somewhere in those 3 days. So let's get to the fun stuff, right? So there's all the categories. There's all the numbers. We see that the questionable or impacted ballots from the Democrats was 15,852. The impacted ballots from the Republicans or Trump was 15,577. That is very close. That's just a difference of 275 ballots. So if you're going to claim fraud on the Democrats, it seems like there was just as much fraud going on with the Republicans. If you're going to try to decipher that from this report, and you're going to say all these are fraudulent with no explanation, then you're going to have to say the Republicans were also committing fraud. Okay? They were trying to scam the election just as hard. The no party disclosed categories. There was 9,373 votes, but we can't say which party that favored because, as you can see, it starts off favoring the Democrats, but also these categories sometimes favor the Republicans. They favored the Republicans in 9 categories to the Democrats 6. So what did this mean? Trump's final vote, 9,955, 4,000. You take away those questionable ballots, that brings him down to this. Biden, his questionable ballots, takes him down to this. You minus that, it's still 45,000. He still wins by 45,000, which is what the original audit said, which is what the state audit said. He won by 45,000. There's no difference. I think if we even added this 9,373 in, it'd probably come out somewhere near this, and he would still win by 45,000. Now, I can only say that, and honestly, I think they should be asking him to clear these numbers up and see how these numbers broke down. 5,200 is quite a bit, and so is that. I mean, not as much as 23,000, but whatever. Or 9,000, I guess, you know. Also, and it's only 7 out of 22 categories that could not be accurately tabulated. I brought this down so if you found fraud in this little breakdown that I did with you, so you didn't have to read it because nobody wants to read this freaking thing. I just did it for you. 24 minutes. Have a nice day. No fraud. Thank you.